Some parts of America are going to get emptier, not because they failed, but because they planned it that way. This is the America we think we know. Big cities, growth everywhere, people stacked on people. But then you look closer, and entire states are quietly opting out. No sprawl, no rush, no interest in filling the space. What nobody tells you is this emptiness isn't accidental. It's policy, geography, economics, sometimes attitude. And it changes how life actually feels when you live there, for better and sometimes worse. In this video, we're counting down 10 states in the USA that feel empty on purpose. Not the obvious ones, the ones with receipts. The kind of data nobody brags about until you see it. Quick question, would you trade convenience for space? Because one of these states made that deal permanently. Wait till you see it. Like the video if you enjoy learning things that make real estate agents uncomfortable. Subscribe. It's basically a survival skill at this point. Let's break it down. Number 10. Maine. Here's a weird fact nobody warns you about. Over 90% of Maine is forest, and most of it isn't protected, touristy, or scenic. It's just quiet. Not cinematic quiet, administrative quiet. The kind that doesn't ask if you're okay. Maine's reputation is clean-cut. Lobster rolls, lighthouses, retirees with boat shoes and opinions about chowder. But then you leave the coast, and suddenly the roads thin out. Cell service blinks. Towns stop introducing themselves. Maine doesn't feel empty the way people imagine emptiness. It feels intentionally unfinished, like the state just decided at some point, yeah, this is far enough. Here's what the numbers actually say. Maine ranks among the lowest states in population growth over the last 50 years. Not declining, just uninterested. Over 17 million acres are privately owned timberland. Not parks, not suburbs, working forest. Entire counties average under 40 people per square mile, and that number hasn't meaningfully changed in decades. The median age is one of the highest in the US, which means towns age quietly instead of expanding loudly. Outside a few coastal hubs, job creation barely keeps pace with replacement, let alone growth. Surprisingly, this isn't collapse, it's a holding pattern. Maine didn't lose a population battle, it simply never entered the race. Here's the emotional tax. You gain space, you gain silence, you gain time that feels wider than it should, but you lose momentum. Services thin out, opportunities drift south, and if you're young, ambitious, or restless, the state doesn't stop you from leaving. It just doesn't chase you. There's something brutally honest about that. And can we talk about the roads for a second? Because Maine roads don't connect places, they test commitment. You'll drive 40 minutes, hit a moose crossing sign, pass one gas station that's definitely closed, and start wondering if you're trespassing on the concept of distance itself. No music, no service, just trees watching you make choices. What nobody tells you is this. Maine isn't empty because it failed. It's empty because it never tried to be full. That's not nostalgia. That's policy, culture, and temperament agreeing to leave space on the table. Number 9. Idaho. Idaho's reputation is having a moment. People talk about Boise like it's the last affordable miracle, the outdoors like it's infinite, the vibe like freedom with better views. On paper, Idaho looks busy, growing, buzzing. But that's the brochure version. Step 20 minutes off the interstate and the state suddenly exhales. Towns thin out. Houses stop clustering. The land stretches like it's daring you to fill it. Here's the twist. Idaho isn't empty because nobody wants it. It's empty because you're not really allowed to spread. Roughly 60% of the state is federally managed land. Translation, you can admire it, hike it, photograph it, but good luck building on it. Boise absorbs most of the growth, pushing home prices up fast, while rural counties barely change at all. Crime stays relatively low. Jobs concentrate in a few metros. The rest of the map just waits. Living here means compression. You get nature everywhere, but opportunity lives in tight bubbles. Space is abundant. Access is not. Idaho has infinite land and still manages to make housing feel competitive. That's almost impressive. And don't let anyone tell you Idaho traffic is not that bad. It's bad emotionally, because it's only bad in exactly 3 places at exactly 3 times, and everyone pretends that's normal. You'll sit in a Boise bottleneck thinking, how are we congested? We're surrounded by wilderness and federal land. It's like waiting in line at an empty restaurant. Be honest, would you trade a smaller paycheck for more space? Yes or no? Number 8. New Mexico. New Mexico gets pitched as artsy desert mysticism, adobe houses, turquoise jewelry, green chili on everything, including decisions. It sounds slow, soulful, intentional. And it is. But drive long enough, and you realize this state doesn't just feel empty, it's structured that way. Roads stretch, towns evaporate, signs start speaking in acronyms. Here's the part people skip. Nearly half of New Mexico is federally or tribally controlled land. Add in national labs, missile ranges, and test sites, and suddenly the emptiness makes sense. Albuquerque carries most of the population, while vast counties sit below 5 people per square mile. Cost of living stays below the national average. Rent is relatively cheap, but job growth is uneven, and crime in urban pockets spikes hard. New Mexico isn't ignored. It's restricted. Nothing says welcome like a beautiful desert followed by a sign that politely says you're not allowed here. Living here means distance is normal. Opportunity is regional. Silence isn't peaceful, it's procedural. You feel free until you realize how much land you can't touch. Also, New Mexico distances are liars. A town looks close on the map. It is not close. It is a philosophical journey. You'll drive an hour, see 3 cars, and start negotiating with yourself about snacks like you're on a minor expedition. The gas stations feel less like businesses and more like landmarks. Quick stat break. New Mexico has more PhDs per capita than you expect, and fewer grocery stores per mile than feels legal. Sit with that. Remember Idaho pretending it was full? Yeah. New Mexico doesn't pretend. And if you think New Mexico's emptiness is quiet, the next state proves emptiness can be planned, zoned, and legally enforced with a clipboard. Number 7. Oregon. Oregon sells a very specific fantasy. Coffee, creativity, forests that look curated, cities that feel thoughtful. It's pitched as balanced living, progressive, livable, but then you drive east or south, or basically anywhere that isn't hugging I-5. And suddenly, Oregon doesn't feel outdoorsy. It feels withheld. Like the state is saying, you can stay, just not everywhere. Here's the mechanism. Oregon enforces urban growth boundaries, hard lines where cities are allowed to expand and where they're absolutely not. The result is density by design. Portland absorbs pressure. Housing costs climb. Meanwhile, rural counties sit nearly frozen in time. Some areas average under 10 people per square mile, while rent inside growth zones spikes far above what the local job market supports. Crime stays relatively low in small towns, higher in urban pockets. Jobs cluster. Space does not. Oregon has plenty of land. It just locked most of it behind a planning committee and a strongly worded map. Living here means intentional limits. Nature stays wild, towns stay small. But if you're priced out of the city, the state doesn't offer a soft landing. It offers distance. And Oregon weather? Let's address it. People call it cozy. It's not cozy. It's a long-term relationship with gray, the kind where you forget what month it is and start celebrating sunlight like it's a national holiday. Everyone swears they love it, but they all own therapy lamps. Every single one. It's funny, Oregon cities feel safer than they should, and some empty rural towns feel more unpredictable than the numbers suggest. And if you think Oregon's emptiness is polite and planned, the next state proves emptiness doesn't always come with manners. Sometimes it just stays because nothing replaced it. Number 6. South Dakota. South Dakota has a clean reputation. Calm, polite, safe. The kind of place politicians point to when they say, "See, simple works." It looks stable from a distance. Quiet towns, open land, nothing on fire. But spend time there and you realize something strange. This state didn't decline, it just stopped continuing. Here's what the data says. Entire counties average under 2 people per square mile. Not shrinking, flatlined. Farming went hyper-efficient, which means fewer people producing more food than ever. Cost of living stays low. Rent is affordable. Crime rates are relatively mild compared to national averages. But job growth? Thin. Young adults leave. Not dramatically, just steadily. South Dakota doesn't scare people away, it simply doesn't give them reasons to stay. South Dakota perfected efficiency so well, it accidentally optimized humans out of the equation. Living here means peace with permanence. Nothing's chasing you, but nothing's catching you either. The emptiness isn't lonely, it's settled. Let's talk wind. South Dakota wind isn't weather, it's a personality trait. It shows up uninvited, rearranges your plans, and never apologizes. You'll park your car facing one direction and come back wondering if it moved itself out of spite. Everyone pretends this is normal. It's not. It's aggressive air. Picture it. Morning silence, no traffic, just wind, grain elevators humming, and a horizon so flat it feels like the world forgot to load the rest of the map. And if you think South Dakota's emptiness is calm and accidental, the next state shows what happens when emptiness is the strategy, not the side effect. Number 5. Arizona. Arizona looks full. Phoenix sprawls forever. Suburbs bloom in the desert like they've got something to prove. From the outside, this feels like a growth state. Sunbelt energy, migration maps lighting up red. But then you drive 30 minutes in the wrong direction, and everything drops off. Hard. Arizona doesn't ease into emptiness. It hits a wall and stops. Here's why. Nearly 43% of Arizona is federal or tribal land, which means massive stretches are legally untouchable. Add strict water rights laws, and suddenly growth isn't about land, it's about pipes. Phoenix absorbs most of the jobs, most of the housing pressure, and most of the crime. Rural Arizona stays sparse, cheap, and quiet. Cost of living sits near the national average, but water availability quietly caps the future. You can build houses, you just can't build rain. Arizona has endless sunshine and a limited subscription plan for water. Bold strategy. Living here feels conditional. Space everywhere. Opportunity clustered. The emptiness isn't romantic, it's preventative. And let's address the heat. People say it's a dry heat. Cool, so is an oven. Summer in Arizona turns every outdoor activity into a negotiation with the sun. You don't walk places, you transfer. Car to building, building to car. Everyone moves like they're being timed. Picture it, early morning desert quiet, pink sky, no traffic. By noon, the air feels angry and you're planning your life around shade. It's wild how Phoenix feels statistically safe in some neighborhoods, while nearby rural towns feel riskier despite barely having people. Be honest, could you live somewhere where water decides your zip code? Yes or no? Number 4. Nebraska. Nebraska's reputation is dependable. Flat, friendly, productive. The kind of place that works without asking for attention. You expect quiet towns, affordable living, low drama, and you get all of that. But then you realize something else is missing. Not excitement, density. Nebraska doesn't feel empty because it failed. It feels empty because it optimized. Here's the math behind the mood. Nebraska produces staggering agricultural output, with fewer people every decade doing the work. Many rural counties sit at under 10 people per square mile and aren't shrinking. They're stabilized at low volume. Cost of living stays well below the national average. Rent is affordable even in cities like Lincoln and Omaha. Crime remains relatively low statewide. Job growth exists, but it's concentrated and specialized. Efficiency replaced presence. Nebraska feeds millions with barely anyone clocking in. That's either impressive or mildly unsettling. Living here feels calm, affordable, and strangely invisible. You're safe, you're stable, but ambition echoes longer than it should. Also, Nebraska distance hits different. Everything looks close because the land is flat and honest, and then you drive it. 40 minutes later, you're still staring at the same horizon like it's buffering. No turns, no drama. Just you, the road, and time reconsidering its pace. Picture it. Quiet morning, cheap coffee, no sirens, no rush. The air smells like grain and rain. The numbers make sense. The calm settles in, and you realize you could stay. You just might stop moving. And if you think Nebraska's emptiness is peaceful and efficient, the next state shows what happens when emptiness isn't about work at all, but about control. Number 3. Utah. Utah's reputation is clean, organized, outdoorsy in a well-lit, early morning kind of way. Families, mountains, growth that feels supervised. From a distance, Utah looks full, busy, successful. But drive outside the Wasatch Front, and the state collapses into silence so fast it feels edited, like someone cut the audio. Here's the structure behind that quiet. Over 65% of Utah is federally owned land, which instantly bottlenecks where people can live. So growth compresses. Salt Lake City, Provo, Ogden, dense, young, expensive. Median rents have jumped fast, outpacing local wages. Crime stays relatively low compared to similarly sized metros. Job growth is strong, but hyper-centralized. Meanwhile, vast regions remain intentionally untouched. This isn't sprawl, it's containment. Utah figured out how to grow fast and still say no with a straight face. Living here means structure everywhere. Communities feel tight, predictable, safe. But step outside the corridor and opportunity evaporates. The emptiness isn't wild, it's reserved. Also, Utah drivers. I don't know who taught them, but everyone drives like they're late and morally superior. No signals, no eye contact, just faith. It's aggressive politeness, like, I cut you off, but spiritually, it was your fault. And if you think Utah's emptiness is controlled and intentional, the next state shows what happens when emptiness isn't planned at all. It just never left. Number 2 doesn't fence off space. It gets trapped inside it. Number 2. West Virginia. West Virginia gets described with one word every time: beautiful. Mountains, curves, fog that looks cinematic even when it's ruining your morning. The lifestyle pitch is quiet, cheap, close-knit. No crowds, no chaos. And that part is true. But live here long enough and you realize the emptiness isn't peaceful, it's structural. The state doesn't open up, it closes around you. Here's the reality under the scenery. West Virginia has lost population for over a decade straight. Entire counties average under 30 people per square mile, and unlike South Dakota, they're still shrinking. Cost of living is low, rent is cheap, violent crime stays below the national average in many rural areas, but job growth is among the weakest in the country. Infrastructure struggles. Access to healthcare is uneven. Opportunity doesn't spread because the land physically won't let it. West Virginia is the only state entirely inside Appalachia. That's not trivia, that's destiny. West Virginia has all the space in the world and still feels boxed in. That takes talent. Living here means isolation with depth. Everything is harder to reach. Everything takes longer. Leaving feels expensive. Staying feels final. And the roads. Nobody warns you about the roads. GPS lies. Distance lies. A 15-minute drive becomes a mountain negotiation with switchbacks, fog, and a truck that definitely doesn't want to be behind you. You're not late, you're committed. And if you think West Virginia's emptiness is intense, number 1 proves emptiness doesn't need mountains, money, or excuses. It just quietly works. Number 1. Kansas. Kansas sits dead center on the map like it's waiting for instructions. Flat, calm, productive. The reputation is simple living, cheap homes, and a horizon that never interrupts you. You expect emptiness because, well, Kansas. But then you realize this isn't neglect or decay. This is a state that figured out it doesn't need density to function and never looked back. Here's the data that makes Kansas quietly dangerous. Large swaths of the state hover around under 10 people per square mile, and that number barely moves. Cost of living is well below the national average. Rent stays affordable even in mid-sized cities. Violent crime remains relatively low statewide. Agriculture and logistics keep the economy stable without pulling people inward. Kansas didn't hollow out, it thinned and kept working. Kansas is so efficient, it makes crowds feel unnecessary. Living here feels steady, safe, quiet. You're not chasing opportunity, it's already handled. But ambition echoes louder when there's nothing to absorb it. And let's talk boredom. Kansas boredom isn't loud. It's polite. It sneaks up on you at 8:47 p.m. when everything's closed, the sky is still huge, and you're debating whether reorganizing a drawer counts as a personality trait. There's nothing wrong, there's just nothing happening. Picture it: clean streets, cheap coffee, no traffic noise, wind in the distance. Your bills are paid, the stats make sense. The calm sticks around longer than you expected. One Kansan put it perfectly: it's not exciting, but it works. And honestly, that's the point. Like the video if this list made you rethink what empty actually means. Subscribe because one day you might accidentally move somewhere quiet, and you'll want to know what that does to your brain.